AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride! Woo!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It's AFR, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name.
Muso. And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Terrio returns next hour. In a minute and a half since we've done the right radio hour. We'll do it coming up. Right now, let us begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
Well, LSU's search for a quarterback in the transfer portal continues. What a tumultuous 48 hours it has been, maybe even 72. But the quick catch-up is, if I bring you very quickly through the timeline as if you know nothing about anything LSU has done in pursuit of a quarterback. LSU had a deal in place with Trinidad Chambliss before the portal opened, a verbal agreement. I know those of you will gasp and hem and haw and clutch your pearls and yell tampering. Shut up. I'm tired of having this conversation. Just shut up. This is how this is done now. Everyone has conversations with agents before the portal opens, before players go into the portal. That's what happens. Why did we spend a month with players announcing their intention to go in the portal? It was basically a flashing light signal to everybody to say, I'm going in the portal, talk to my agent if you want to do a deal. That's what happens. That is college football now, okay? Yell tampering, I don't care. I'm sick of having that conversation. Chambliss was going in the portal. LSU was going to pay him. He was going to follow Lane Kiffin. Two things happened. Number one, Ole Miss beat Georgia. Nobody went in the portal the next day. Number two, Chambliss, everyone knew, Ole Miss knew, LSU knew, everyone knew he was not going to get his waiver. LSU decided we're not going to wait and see if he wins a legal battle. We're going to move on. So they moved on. They went after Brendan Sorsby. He had a deal in place with Texas Tech the day he stepped foot on LSU's campus. He had already had his deal in place. They go after Sam Leavitt, number one player in the portal. Real, legitimate concerns over his Liz Frank injury. If you're going to make that type of financial investment in a player, that type of physical ailment that was certainly going to keep him out of spring, possibly into summer, who knows how long, and at what level he might be able to return, was a real concern. So they moved on to Damon Williams. We know what's happened there. Damon Williams was going to enter the portal. Washington said, oh, no, you're not. They lawyered up. Damon Williams lawyered up as well. And as they sort of sifted through the deal, they realized, and hat tip Ross Dellinger, he got a hand on the deal that Damon Williams did with Washington. Damon Williams would have owed Washington the full value of his contract, $4 million. So, to spell it out, if LSU was going to get Damon Williams, hypothetically, or Miami or Oregon, whoever, they would have had to pay the $4 million to Washington to cover Williams' contract, plus whatever you were going to pay him here. If Washington was paying him $4, you better believe that what LSU was going to pay, or whoever was going to pay to get him, was going to be above $4 million, making it worth his while to leave that deal. Call it 5. I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know. I don't know the number. The first number I heard about Damon Williams more than a week ago was 4.8. But before the portal opened, that was the number I heard. So call it 5. You're going to pay $9 million to get Damon Williams? No, you're not. So Damon Williams, with no other option, says on Thursday night, I think I'll work it out with Washington. Going to be really awkward there with the fans who spent 48 hours just absolutely eviscerating this guy on social media, including the coach's wife. Really ugly situation. I don't really care what happens at Washington. Not a lick. They disband their program. I don't care. So what I do care about is who's going to play quarterback at LSU. And it's not going to be Damon Williams. And it's not going to be Brendan Sorsby or Trinidad Chambliss. So where do they go from here? That's the big question. And there's a few options out there that may reveal themselves. I think it is worth mentioning because the question that everyone asks is, what about Sam Leavitt? So the Sam Leavitt thing is, when you play it out, pretty obvious. The visit ended very badly. Okay, it was going great. LSU was going to push for a commitment. You can read the tea leaves and understand what was happening. Kentucky took a commitment from Minchie. Texas Tech. Leavitt canceled his visit there after they took Sorsby. Like, it was LSU. But when LSU, with a bird in hand and Leavitt, pivoted to look at Damon Williams, Sam Leavitt abruptly ended his visit to LSU and went to Knoxville. That visit carried on into today, and now reports are that Sam Leavitt is going to visit Miami. I was told on Thursday night that Leavitt and LSU is not dead, but I think this is me speculating here. While not impossible, it is highly improbable. You had this guy here, you were pushing for his commitment, and then very abruptly you pulled the rug out from underneath him to pursue someone else. To try to re-engage with him, I think, is going to be a real challenge. Again, he may not have a better option than LSU. So maybe they're able to do this. But I don't think Leavitt is probable. It's not impossible. It's just improbable. After Sam Leavitt, you look at who else is out there. Well, the highest-ranked quarterbacks are Dylan Raiola, Deuce Knight, Bo Prabula. I mean, are those the waters you want to be fishing in? Now, Deuce Knight is from Mississippi. Ole Miss was one of his finalists, where he was recruited by Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. This was a five-star who just spent his freshman season at Auburn. I think Deuce Knight has tremendous upside. Played in 2 games at Auburn, started one against Mercer, accounted for 6 touchdowns. Was awesome. Young, no experience. Is that the route you want to go? You may not have another option. Deuce Knight could very well be that guy. I do not believe Bo Prabula is a realistic option. I have not heard anyone at LSU mention to me Dylan Raiola. I'm not saying those aren't options. I'm just saying I haven't heard those names mentioned as options. The other name that's sort of a wild card right now is Houston Longstreet. He was a 5-star in the most recent class in 2025, just finished his freshman season at Southern Cal, where he went under Lincoln Riley. He was recruited by Lane Kiffin, took a visit to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss. And on Thursday night, Longstreet entered the transfer portal, leading a lot of people to believe that maybe this is the target for LSU. I personally have not had a firsthand conversation with anyone credible that would lead me to believe this is the target. I'm not saying he's not the target. I'm just saying I personally can't validate this. Maybe he is. But again, similar to Deuce Knight, you'd be talking about a guy with very limited experience. Super high ceiling, physical ability potential, not a lot of experience. If you're trying to win now, hard to believe you're going to do that with someone with no experience. The other option, seemingly, would be an option we don't know, meaning someone who's not currently in the portal. Who is that? I don't know. I have no idea. But go back to the beginning of this conversation, how a lot of people are whining about tampering. This is how business is done. You have to believe there are agents, player reps, call them whatever you want, all over the country that are looking at the situation at LSU going, LSU doesn't have a quarterback. That's the SEC. They're willing to pay $3, $4, $5, $6 million for a quarterback. Might they be interested in my guy? So you call LSU and say, hey, any interest in fill in the blank? Now, who are those players? I don't know. I don't have a name for you. I wish I did. Believe me, I wish I did. I don't. But you can use some deductive reasoning here to kind of figure out how this might go and what options are there. I don't believe that the two lower classification quarterbacks that are set to visit LSU are options that LSU's looking at as like plug-and-play starters. They got a quarterback on campus today from Elon. I'm not here to tell you that you're bringing in Landon Clark from Elon or Trey Guerra from Tyler Junior College are the options that you want to go to battle with against Clemson on Labor Day weekend. Maybe those are backup options. But right now, you're running out of options. And Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock, their plan A was Chambliss. Plan B, C was Sorsby and Levitt. D was DeMond Williams. You're moving down the list. Like that game of musical chairs we've talked about a bunch. Music's starting to stop. A lot of people have a chair. There's not as many chairs out there on the floor. So you're going to have to find somebody. Now, I'm not going to panic. A lot of people have asked, when do you panic? When the portal cycle ends and you don't have a quarterback, that's when you panic. But at this point, do you trust Lane Kiffin, Billy Glasscock, this staff to identify a talented quarterback to come in and play in 2026? When the portal cycle is over, when the roster is set, we'll pull back, take the 10,000-foot view, and I'll give you an opinion. One thing that's abundantly clear is when Lane Kiffin took the job, the assumption was that Trinidad Chambliss would be here. That ain't going to happen. They have tried to pivot from there to attract other top options, and they haven't landed one. So what's next? We'll all find out together, and as we know more, we'll share it with you. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here. Remember, you can email us, tweet us, or text us, 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. Show Open Every Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of the LSU Tigers and the New Orleans Saints. Going to be watching the College Football Playoff Semi tonight with Indiana and Oregon. Great. Make sure you do it with plenty of delicious ice-cold Bud Light. Fill in your refrigerator at home, or if you're going to be at your favorite restaurant, sports bar, watering hole, make sure you're asking for the delicious taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of the LSU Tigers. All right, it's After Further Review. We'll knock out a quick break. The first half of the College Football Playoff Semifinal is in the books. We'll knock it around next here on AFR.
AFR.
GLO, glowresources.com, glowresources.com. They are complete employer solutions at Glow Resources. It's kind of incredible when you think about this. No matter what business you're in, no doubt over the course of the year, you conduct interviews, you talk to different prospective employees. Glow Resources, over the course of a year, conducts roughly 50 interviews a day. So over the course of a year, that's 15,000 interviews over the course of the year. 15,000 interviews over the course of the year. If you do something 15,000 times, how good would you be at it? Well, that's one of Glow Resources' big differentiators. When they conduct 15,000 interviews over the course of the year, they know the questions to ask to make sure they check all the boxes to find and eliminate potential hurdles to find the right people specifically engineered to maximize your business. It's Glow Resources. GLO, glowresources.com.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Three receivers bunch to the left. Becca's looking that way. And still looking. Takes off running. Carson Beck with his legs. Puts Miami on top.
Call on ESPN. Chris Fowler was the game winner. Carson Beck runs it in. Wasn't without drama, though. 18 seconds to go. Ole Miss, couple of passes, would put themselves in position for one shot into the end zone. A lot of ninnies from Ole Miss were crying about pass interference. Yeah, let's talk about the receiver just absolutely stiff-arming the defensive back going into the end zone. It's a jump ball. Shut up. I'm just not in the mood. I tell you what I am very excited about. I'm very excited about Ole Miss losing and the Runs being relegated to what their history is and has been and will be. Because if we're being honest about Ole Miss, fantastic season. Really, truly. If I was an objective observer, which I'm not, I love LSU and I want Ole Miss to lose all the time. If I was an objective observer, I could look at that team and go, man, they're fun to watch. Chambliss is a great story coming from Division II, elevating the way he did. Keywan Lacey, first-team all-conference, 1,400-yard rusher, just explosive, awesome. I mean, there's a lot to like. And then their coach leaving them, with an assistant taking over and making their way all the way to the semifinal. I mean, there's a lot objectively to root for with Ole Miss. I do not root for the conference ever, and I do not root for Ole Miss. I don't root for Bama or Georgia or any of these teams. I don't want them to have success. I want what's best for LSU. And Ole Miss playing in a championship or winning a championship is not good for LSU. Ole Miss needs to be a runt, which they've been for 6 decades. And I think they're going to be relegated to that. Maybe it's wishful thinking. We'll see what happens. Maybe they're able to parlay this success of this season and the last half decade under Lane Kiffin into the next half decade or more. History says that's not going to be the case because Trinidad Chambliss, his waiver has been denied. The coaches responsible for the offense, Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss, Joe Cox, they're all in Baton Rouge now. And what remains is a defensive coordinator that last night his defense gave up 31 points and 459 yards of offense to Carson Beck and Miami. And after his team took a late lead in the ball game, his defense needed to get a stop and couldn't. After Ole Miss scored with 3:13 to play in the ball game, take a 27-24 lead. Defense couldn't get a stop over 3:13. They allowed the touchdown with 18 seconds to go, and they lose 31-27. So this was a game that was, if you watched it, dominated by Miami. And but for Miami's foolish plays and a lot of penalties, the inability to drop 4 interceptions that their defensive backs had hands on, allowing a 74-yard touchdown run by Keywan Lacey. Hat tip to Lacey. He's outstanding. But overwhelmingly, this was a game dominated by a team that was better on both lines of scrimmage, that controlled the pace and the tempo of the game. Yeah, I wondered in this game, could Miami just line up, run the ball, shorten the game, run the clock, and play a low-scoring game? If they did, that played Miami's hands. If Miami had to score to keep pace with Ole Miss, could they do it? Well, they proved they could. They scored 31 points in the game. Miami 41-22 time of possession. 41-22 to 18-38. Y'all, 41.5 minutes to 18.5 minutes. That's a quarter and a half more time of possession that Miami had. I mean, if Shannon Dawson, the OC for Miami, had half a brain and just ran the football instead of trying to let Carson Beck go out there and throw the ball 37 times. Beck was 23 of 37. Jesus. If they just ran the football over and over again, it would have probably looked more like Indiana against Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Instead, they kept trying to throw the football, and it made it way more competitive than it needed to be. I don't care about Miami. This isn't a show about Miami, and I'm not interested in what happens in the national championship game. I'm going to watch as a fan of college football and be really interested. Whoever wins tonight's game with Oregon and Indiana, I think it'll be Indiana. They'll play Miami. Cool theater. Miami getting to play on its home field in the national championship game. That'll be a first in the college football playoff era, and probably an only in the college football playoff era, unless if Miami makes it again in their home field. I mean, I don't know that if the playoff ever makes it to the Rose Bowl, like if UCLA ever plays in a championship game, or I don't think anybody has a home field in Glendale. So anyway, all that to say, like I don't know that we're ever gonna. I don't know that if they ever move the championship game again to Tampa, like I don't think South Florida's playing in a championship game. All that to say, like we're gonna see something which is to this point unique, in the playoff era, a team playing in their home stadium against Indiana or Oregon, which, the winner of tonight's game rematch will be fascinating. But for the most part, what I'm excited to see is Ole Miss lose because through the LSU prism, the more Ole Miss kept playing, the more the narrative continued about Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss team winning without him. And what is very real and obvious now moving forward is Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss running that offense are now gone. Now, they're bringing in John David Baker as their new OC, but that feels an awful lot like when LSU brought in Jake Peets to run the Joe Brady offense. How did that go? He was ill-equipped, and he didn't have all the same players as 2019. Now, some of these players are going to be back next year at Ole Miss, but see what happens with Trinidad Chambliss. But overwhelmingly, having not the same players and a totally new offensive staff should limit that offense. And defensively, they're good, not great, very clearly. They got dominated at the point of attack all night by Miami and would continue to get dominated by elite-level teams. So, y'all, my contention has always been, I think the hierarchy needs to exist in sports. If you're going to play in a conference, you're going to have to go through the gauntlet of really good teams. You need the bottom feeders to be bottom feeders. I don't need Vanderbilt being great. I don't need Ole Miss and Arkansas being 10-11 win teams. I need those teams fighting to get the bowl eligibility because I know I'm going to have to go up against Auburn and Florida and Alabama and Georgia and Texas and the big boys of the sport. Now, on the flip side, one of the things I do love is the parity in college football. I love that it's no longer just the committee of goofballs choosing among 4 logos that they think are going to drive TV audience. I love the fact that we actually have some degree of meritocracy. So to that end, I really enjoy this playoff. But strictly looking at it through an LSU prism, I don't need Ole Miss having any success. So I am thrilled that Ole Miss lost that football game, that Carson Beck led that game-winning drive, that Trinidad Chambliss' final pass fell incomplete, that his career likely is over, and Ole Miss now is in a real predicament because if Chambliss does not win in court to gain another year of eligibility, Austin Simmons has already gone to Missouri, and they're in a pickle because they don't have a quarterback. So I wish no good things at all for Ole Miss. I hope they lose all their games next year, and I would love to see how this continues to transpire. Hopefully, with LSU finding its way back on a winning path under Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss finding its way back to what it's been for 6 decades, which is a runt. All right, it's after further review. We're glad to have you aboard with us here. Brought to you by Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, Arco.com, 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 ARCCO. If you're a business owner and you have a commercial or industrial facility and the power goes out, what do? Well, you can't afford to be offline. You can't afford to just have your business shut down. It doesn't matter if you're a grocery store, a gas station, banks, hospitals, schools, industrial facilities, municipalities, any type of business. Storm comes, power goes out, what do? Well, you call Arco Power Systems. And my suggestion actually would be to call Arco now. Generac Industrial Generator Power. Everything is turnkey. They can install a permanent standby generator. They can lease you a generator for when the storm goes out or storm knocks out the power. And they can service your generator as well. It's Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, Arco.com, Arco.com. Again, I say it all the time, but north to Little Rock, east to Mobile, west to San Antonio. Draw a big circle. Anywhere in that circle, Arco will serve you. ARCCO, Arco.com. All right, y'all, it is after further review. We're glad to have you aboard with us here. Excited, Terrio will be back here coming up in hour number 2, so 32 minutes from right now. Been a minute since we have since we've heard from Terrio. We missed the last couple of Fridays with the holidays. So excited to have Terrio back, right? Radio hours, all that good stuff. We will knock out a quick break, come back, go around the SEC. Stick around with us here. It's AFR.
After further review.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. You've been injured in an accident. It's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Get Gordon and get it done. Go to getgordon.com, getgordon.com, getgordon.com. Had Gordon on the show yesterday, as a matter of fact, not to talk about the personal injury component of his business, but of course as a great benefactor of LSU, as a booster, and through many NIL endeavors. We had Gordon here to give us the legal perspective on Damon Williams, but also talk about the contractual side of that. Been a great resource to ours, and been a great resource of ours, and been a great resource to our communities as well, all over the state of Louisiana. Gordon and his team, they got offices all over Louisiana, so highly recommend, no matter where you are in Louisiana, if you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Go to getgordon.com, getgordon.com. You can connect with an agent online in a matter of seconds. Getgordon.com, getgordon.com. Get Gordon and get it done.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
The quarterback carousel on the transfer portal is almost as interesting as the coaching carousel. Almost. I didn't say as interesting. I said almost as interesting, with an awful lot of rumors rolling around. There's a lot of quarterbacks who have been certain places and might consider going again, and it's a pretty fascinating thing to unfold. As we look at all the options for LSU at this point, and we started the show today talking about Damon Williams going back to Washington. That's not necessarily a strong desire to be at Washington. That's the fact that there were no suitors willing to pay $9 million. You'd have to pay $4 million to get him out of his contract, and then likely at least $5 million to get him where you are. So, sans any other options, Damon Williams is going back to Washington. So, this is an interesting one as well. Whenever the portal, just before the portal opened, we talked about all the options that were on the table for LSU. We went through the obvious ones with Chambliss and Sorsby and Levitt, and another one I threw out Damon Williams as well. Another one I talked about was DJ Lagway, and I know we reported it over at LouisianaSports.net that LSU did have contact with Lagway's representatives in that time leading up to the opening of the portal, and it's a guy that physically Lane Kiffin really likes a lot, and why not? I mean, he was a 5-star. There's a reason Lagway was a 5-star. But he battled injuries at Florida, and be it injuries in system and circumstance, and a lot of it led to poor play, which was objectively true, was poor play. But this is one of those things where you have a very gifted player who's played a good amount of football that hasn't realized his potential. Well, Lagway committed to Baylor, which I think we probably talked about here. I know I talked about it on Locked on LSU. Was always kind of maybe thought to be the front runner. He's from Texas, and his agents kind of, my understanding, wanted him to be out of the SEC. His dad played at Baylor, so sort of a legacy there. Maybe just a friendlier situation. And Lagway committed to Baylor, but apparently hasn't signed with Baylor. Pete Thamel just a bit ago putting out on Twitter that Lagway is planning to continue to take visits before he officially signs somewhere. Had a good visit to Baylor, apparently committed to Baylor. That was the reports a day ago. But as Thamel tweets, one program that has consistently expressed interest is Ole Miss. So could Lagway end up going from Florida to Ole Miss? It's just one to watch as this whole thing continues to move along. It is After Further Review. We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit, firstsouthland.com, firstsouthland.com. Thinking of buying land? Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. January, February is such a busy time for our friends at First South Farm Credit because most people that are hunters, you're coming off hunting season, and you have that reminder of what it's like sharing a property, leasing a property from someone else when you're hunting on someone else's land. And there's a lot of reasons you don't need me to explain to you, you're a hunter, why you'd rather have your own property. Well, First South Farm Credit can make that happen. And this is the time to start that process. So, thinking of buying land, make sure your first call is to First South Farm Credit, because since 1916, they've done one thing. They've done it better than anyone else. That's help Louisianians buy land. FirstSouthland.com, firstsouthland.com. thinking of buying land, your first call should be to First South Farm Credit, firstsouthland.com. All right, as after further review, we're glad to have you aboard with us here. Our Friday shows are brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar. We do it every day about this time. Let's go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference. The Ole Miss Rebels.
By now, you probably know Trinidad Chambliss' waiver for a 6th year of eligibility denied by the NCAA. That should come as no surprise. It would appear to end Chambliss' career, although he has retained Tom Mars, as we know, and they are seeking legal options to continue playing. We'll keep you posted, but the NCAA has ruled denying Chambliss' waiver.
The South Carolina Gamecocks.
NC State offensive tackle Jacarius Peak has committed to South Carolina, the number 1 offensive tackle in the transfer portal, the number 6 player overall, 6'4", 300 pounds, has over 2,200 snaps in college. Jacarius Peak heading to the Gamecocks.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
Wide receiver Isaiah Horton will enter the transfer portal. 42 catches this year for over 500 yards and a team-high 8 receiving touchdowns. Projected to be a high second-round pick, but says instead he'll head back to school and instead of declaring for the NFL draft, and will hit the portal.
The Auburn Tigers.
Auburn assigned James Madison offensive tackle transfer Joseph Simmons. Simmons started every game at left tackle for the Dukes. Of course, who made the College Football Playoff this year. Auburn's already signed former Michigan State offensive tackle Stanton Ramiel, and now adding Simmons. That's their 2 projected starters at tackle for the 2026 season. Simmons is the 12th bench tackle in the portal.
The Georgia Bulldogs.
And East Carolina transfer safety Jamarly Riddle says he'll play for Georgia next season. First team All-AAC. They're at ECU. 2 seasons with the Pirates. 6 foot, 182-pound defensive back, the number 21 safety in the portal. All right, there you have it. That is around the SEC. It is after further review. We are presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar in Town Center. Great spot to go set up this weekend. Have yourself a cigar, craft cocktail, a beer, watch some TV, watch your favorite sporting event. Just relax, unwind right there in Town Center at Don Juan Cigar Bar. The Trinidad Chambliss story continues to unfold. It is a little comical to me. In the weeks leading up to the opening of the transfer portal, it was abundantly clear to the many different people that I spoke with associated with Ole Miss that they felt that this was a foregone conclusion. I would go so far as to say that NCAA representatives probably unofficially, informally told Ole Miss that Chambliss was not going to get his waiver. One of the key factors, and I didn't know this, I learned this throughout this process, and talking to a lot of people associated with Ole Miss. One of the things to get a medical waiver from the NCAA that is required is the school has to validate the reason this player didn't play was the injury. So as to say, it's not denying an injury happened. It's to say the reason they didn't play was the injury. So in this instance, Ole Miss needed Ferris State. So Chambliss, go back, had like this tonsil issue, right? In August of that season. They needed Ferris State to confirm the reason Chambliss didn't play that year was the tonsil issue. And Ferris State was like, yeah, that's not why he didn't play. He had the issue in August, but that's not why he didn't play throughout the year. It's because they had a veteran quarterback who's better, so he didn't play. So they knew Chambliss was not going to get this waiver from the NCAA. And there were a lot of Ole Miss fans who were not happy with me earlier this week on Twitter whenever Chambliss announced he was re-signing with Ole Miss. And I made a point to say LSU decided to move on from Chambliss because they realized they couldn't afford to wait on a what if. What if Chambliss, you wait this thing out and he doesn't get the waiver, which he didn't, and a judge doesn't grant an injunction and allow him to play? Like, what if that doesn't happen? And then the portal cycle has spun and you don't have a quarterback. So LSU I was in Las Vegas last weekend. I got these calls. It was like LSU made the decision. Well, you'd love to have Trinidad Chambliss. Of course you would. But there was very little certainty around his eligibility for next year. So that's when they made the decision to pivot. And they brought in Sorsby and they brought in Levitt. And they moved on. Now, Chambliss certainly was plan A. And you had Sorsby and Levitt as plans B and C in whatever order. And then you saw DeMond Williams as plan D. And they're still without a quarterback. So this is not gone according to plan. Like I'm not sitting there sunshine pumping. This is the thing where you should be sitting back going, quarterback carousel is spinning and you still ain't got one. Like literally zero. But not going to overreact because you still got time and there are still options. So let's see what Lane and Billy Glasscock might be able to do. But all that to say, Chambliss not getting the waiver is no surprise. Like whatsoever. Ole Miss knew it. LSU knew it. Everybody knew it wasn't getting the waiver. The question, it's why he retained Tom Mars. It's why he retained Tom Mars, the attorney, because he knew he wasn't going to get this through the NCAA. His opportunity is maybe through the legal system. So we'll wait and see. And in the meantime, Ole Miss has now got to hope and pray as well and find out a backup option for itself because Austin Simmons has moved on to Missouri. Quarterback carousel, man. Almost as entertaining as the coaching carousel. All right, y'all, it's After Further Review. We are brought to you by Evermore, EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. Drink Evermore, delicious, refreshing, all-natural Evermore. It's natural artesian water. You want to find the store nearest you that has Evermore? Go to Evermore.com, EVAMOR, EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. As a matter of fact, there was a fellow just a bit ago on my show text line. Shout out to Kyle. I'll shout him out. Kyle Milliken is his name. Kyle Milliken today at 12:30, 2 p.m. Central on my text line sent me a photo of an end cap of Evermore at Sullivan's Grocery in Gluckstadt, Mississippi, 10 minutes north of Jackson. So shout out. Point is, doesn't matter where you are, Evermore is a local company that distributes nationally, so support a great Louisiana company and drink natural artesian water from right here. Drink Evermore. EVAMOR, Evermore.com. Okay, y'all, it is After Further Review. We're going to knock out a quick break, come back and wrap up hour number one. Terrio's here in 15 minutes. Don't you move. It's AFR.
After Further Review.
Have you done it yet? I've been telling you about this, and it's an awesome feature. Have you gone to DuplessisBuilders.net yet? You know, maybe you have a pool already at your home. Cool. Maybe it's a little dated. Time for an upgrade, a renovation, a remodel. Duplessis can do that. Maybe you bought a home that doesn't have a pool. Well, Duplessis can build you a pool, outdoor kitchen, all of it. Resort-style pool, whatever custom finishes you want, they can do everything. Or if you want like a cocktail pool, something small for your sort of like patio backyard, anything in between, they can help you. And I highly recommend, if you're thinking, man, I can't afford this, you just trust me, you got to do this. Go to DuplessisBuilders.net. Even if you have a pool or aren't even thinking about building a pool, go to DuplessisBuilders.net. Go to the website. Right on the homepage, there's a Pick Your Pool tab. There's 11 different pool designs. Just click it. There's 11 different pool designs. You can pick your favorite design, pick out your features. It's all there. DuplessisBuilders.net.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona. Presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
All right, Terrio's here in 12 minutes from right now. Tigers did add a few more commitments today via the transfer portal. We reported earlier this week that, or a day ago, I should say, that Malik Elzy, the former Illinois wide receiver, was taking a visit to LSU. He did, in fact, commit to LSU here on Friday. That is the fifth wide receiver to commit to LSU here in this portal class. And it goes to illustrate just how much work the Tigers had to do here to make over that room with so many guys hitting the portal. Elzy's an interesting one because he played his first 2 years at Illinois, and then this year played in just 4 games to maintain his redshirt year. So he's still got 2 years of eligibility remaining. Now, in his across his 3 seasons, only 2 of which he played significantly enough. Played 19 games those first 2 years, but in 3 seasons, just 16 catches for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. But what you're talking about here with Elzy is a guy that's 6'2", 215 pounds, a big-bodied wide receiver, and they are betting on the come. And he's got multiple years of eligibility remaining. Again, that's a thing that is so, I keep stressing it, but it's a thing that's so important to remember with how it's just very evident with how Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock are building their portal class. It's not the same as a year ago. And I'm not saying one's right, wrong, good, bad. I'm just illustrating a difference, to be clear. A year ago, LSU went after so many one-year mercenaries. A.J. Halsey, 1 year. Bernard Gooden, 1 year. Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler, Patrick Payton, 1 year players. I mean, they went so heavily. Bauer Sharp, Berrien Brown. These were all guys with 1 year of eligibility remaining. So they were going after these mercenaries to try to saddle up to win in 1 year behind Nussmeier as a veteran quarterback. And I'm not saying that was the wrong approach. It didn't work, but that was the approach. This year, you can tell they're going after players with multiple years of eligibility remaining. And some of these guys are going to be depth pieces here in 2026. But the hope is they stay for the 26 season and 27. There's no guarantee that happens, as we see. I mean, everybody can go in the portal every year. But you're getting depth pieces that aren't freshmen. You're getting depth pieces that have played major college football, that have multiple years of experience remaining. It's just a different way of building the roster. The other one is one that we broke. We reported over at LouisianaSports.net on Thursday night. And this is potentially a really significant one. 5-star defensive end Jordan Ross has committed to LSU. He's actually signed with LSU out of the transfer portal. So Jordan Ross was the number 1 edge in the country a couple of years ago in the class of 2024. 6'5", 245, 5-star, number 1 edge, goes to Tennessee. Over 2 seasons with the Vols, he plays in 22 games. He has limited productivity over those 2 seasons, but you're talking about a guy that is a physical freak show. And as I was told earlier today, they had 2 really elite, high-end level edge rushers that were coming in to visit in this portal class. And we've talked about Chaz Coleman from Penn State, and the other was Jordan Ross of Tennessee. And as I understand it, LSU viewed these guys almost as a what and what. Physically incredible players, but they were only going to take one of them and prioritize one of them, and whichever wanted to commit, they would take it. So Chaz Coleman went and decided to continue taking other visits, which that's completely agreeable. He went to Ohio State, took another visit after that. Well, Jordan Ross came to campus, liked what he saw, wanted to commit. They took it. Now, could Chaz Coleman still end up here? Maybe. I'm not discounting that entirely. I'm just telling you that was the approach. They've now taken 2 edge players in this class already. They took Jalen Brown out of South Carolina, who effectively comes over with Sterling Lucas, and now they've taken Jalen Ross or Jordan Ross as well out of Tennessee. So you've got 2 what you feel like elite level edge players. You've added 2 elite level interior players as well, top 10 interior portal players with Malik Brockton out of Auburn, and we talked about Stefan Green earlier this week out of Clemson. So 2 top 10 defensive tackles in the portal, a top 10 edge in the portal, and a top 100 edge in the portal. There's an asterisk that goes with Jalen Brown because I think he'd be much higher rated, but missed much of this past year due to injury. But they've added 4 players there on the defensive line to sort of fortify that group. So What else might Blake Baker add on the defensive side of the ball? I don't know, but I told you before the portal opened, the best info that I had is they were looking at adding single-digit guys via the portal. They've added 2 tackles, 2 edge players, and the number 1 safety in the portal. Everything left for LSU defensively feels like a luxury. Anyone else you would get defensively at this point would feel like a luxury. You've got your starting corners. You've got 3 elite-level safeties. You've got Whit Weeks. You feel good about your numbers at linebacker and some of those young players there as well, and how are they prioritizing things. So, unless if there's like a can't miss that's interested and you can make it work financially, it would feel like a luxury. But otherwise, they're pretty close to being done there on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive lineman, quarterback. Got to get busy. All right, it's After Further Review, brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Terrio next.
AFR.
We're brought to you by Parrish Construction and Roofing, parrishbuilt.com, parrishbuilt.com. Do business with someone you know. That's me. That's Terrio, who's about to walk in the door. Richard Tilley, Joe Morales, our great team over at Parrish Construction and Roofing. Hey, we had a ton of rain last night and into today. I say it all the time. When the rain falls, it's typically when people realize that they got roof damage. As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law sent me a video today from outside of his house. He got granules from his shingles all over the ground outside of his home. A lot of times when the rain falls, the storm comes, that's when we realize we have roof damage. If you're not sure if you have roof damage, let us come do that free, no-obligation roofing inspection. By the way, big shout-out, hat tip to our friends in the 504. Major expansion of our resources into New Orleans. Of course, home base is in Baton Rouge. We have a New Orleans office already. One of our partners, Joe Morales, lives in River Ridge. We're in New Orleans every single day. We'd love to help you out. parrishbuilt.com.